Look, the path goes down this way. It looks a bit steep. Don't worry, I'll be right here. Okay, I'm coming.
Hey, don't look so down.
I just feel stuck.
Come on, get up. You can do it.
Most people believe there's a moment coming. A moment where they'll feel ready, motivated, clear, confident enough to finally fix their finances. They're waiting for that moment. And that wait is the reason nothing changes. This is the motivation lie. The belief that you must feel different before you act differently. It sounds reasonable, it feels compassionate, and it quietly keeps people stuck for years. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Motivation is not a reliable starting point. It never has been. Motivation is an emotional response, not a decision-making tool. It rises when things feel exciting. It disappears when things feel hard, boring, or uncertain. And money improvement is almost always boring and uncertain at the beginning. That's why motivation fades right when it's needed most. People don't fail because they lack motivation. They fail because they're waiting for a feeling that never stabilizes. The brain doesn't generate motivation in a vacuum. It generates motivation after evidence, after progress, after momentum, after proof. But people expect motivation first, so they wait. They tell themselves, I'll start when I'm less stressed, when I have more time, when I feel confident, when I feel like I know what I'm doing. But that feeling never arrives on its own, because readiness is not a prerequisite for action. It's a result of action. This is where the psychology breaks down. The brain wants certainty before effort, but certainty only comes after effort has already been made. So people get trapped in a loop. No action because no motivation. No motivation because no action. And the loop feels logical from the inside. Another reason motivation fails is because it's often confused with emotional safety. People don't want motivation. They want reassurance. They want to feel like they won't mess it up, like they won't fail again, like they won't feel stupid or ashamed. So they wait until fear disappears. But fear doesn't disappear before action. It disappears after repeated exposure. Confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you earn through repetition. Every time you wait for motivation, you reinforce avoidance. The brain learns, not acting keeps me safe. Delay reduces discomfort, and delay becomes the habit. This is why people can intellectually understand money for years and still not change. Understanding feels productive, learning feels safe, planning feels controlled, but execution feels vulnerable. So people stay in preparation mode. They consume content, they research, they think, and thinking becomes the substitute for doing. Another lie about motivation is that it's supposed to feel good. People expect motivation to feel energizing, exciting, inspiring. But early-stage motivation often feels like anxiety. It feels like resistance, doubt, internal friction. Because starting challenges identity. It forces you to confront the gap between where you are and where you want to be. That gap is uncomfortable. So instead of acting, people interpret discomfort as a sign they're not ready. But discomfort is the signal that growth is happening. If starting feels uncomfortable, that doesn't mean something is wrong. It means something is changing. The motivation lie also survives because of past failures. People remember times they tried and stopped. So now they tell themselves, I don't want to start again just to quit. I need to be sure this time. That desire for certainty creates paralysis, because no system feels safe enough when fear is driving the evaluation. So people wait until they feel serious enough. But seriousness is not a feeling, it's behavior. You become serious by showing up consistently, not by feeling intense. Another reason motivation fails is because it's temporarily spiked after inspiration. They watch a video, read a book, have a realization. They feel motivated. Then life interrupts, energy drops, emotion fades, and they conclude, see, I'm not motivated enough. They mistake emotional fluctuation for personal failure. In reality, motivation always fades. What matters is what remains when it does. And what remains is structure. Structure carries behavior when emotion disappears. That's why relying on motivation is fragile. It's like trying to build a house on weather. Some days it's sunny, some days it's not. You can't wait for perfect conditions. Another hidden cost of the motivation lie is that it turns money improvement into a personality trait. People say, "I'm just not disciplined. I'm not motivated like other people. I don't have that mindset." They turn behavior into identity, and identities are harder to change than habits. In reality, disciplined people don't feel disciplined. They feel structured. They don't wake up motivated. They wake up predictable. They remove the need to decide every day. That's the key difference. Motivation requires constant renewal. Systems require none. The people who make progress don't ask, "Do I feel like doing this?" They ask, "Is this what I do?" That shift removes emotion from the equation. Another reason motivation doesn't show up is because people are emotionally exhausted. Money stress drains mental energy. Decision fatigue builds. Confidence erodes. So when people say, "I'm not motivated," what they often mean is, "I'm overwhelmed." Motivation doesn't cure overwhelm. Simplicity does. Smaller steps, clear defaults, fewer decisions. Waiting for motivation keeps complexity high. Action reduces it. There's also a timing illusion at play. People assume motivation should precede consistency. In reality, consistency precedes motivation. You act first, then results appear. Then motivation stabilizes. Reversed order never resolves. The people who escape this lie stop waiting for emotional permission. They start acting at low intensity, not dramatic changes, not extreme discipline. Small, repeatable actions that don't require hype. They lower the emotional barrier to entry. Instead of, "I'm fixing my finances," they think, "I'm just doing this one thing." That removes pressure. Pressure kills motivation faster than anything else. Another breakthrough is when people stop trying to feel confident and start trying to feel neutral. Confidence is unstable. Neutrality is sustainable. You don't need to feel good to act. You just need to not feel overwhelmed. Neutral action compounds. This is why boring beats exciting. Excitement fades, boredom lasts, and lasting is what builds momentum. The motivation lie also explains why people restart constantly. They wait, then they feel motivated, then they start big, then they burn out, then they stop, then they wait again. Each restart damages trust. Eventually, they stop believing themselves. That's when motivation becomes even harder to feel. The way out is not more motivation. It's fewer promises, smaller commitments, easier wins, predictable behavior. Trust is rebuilt through consistency, not intensity. If you're listening to this and thinking, "I've been waiting," that's not a flaw, it's conditioning. You've been taught that feelings lead behavior, but with money, behavior must lead feelings. That's the reversal most people never make. You don't feel ready, then act. You act, then feel ready. And readiness grows quietly, not as excitement, but as familiarity. The moment finances start feeling boring is the moment they start working. In the next video, I'll explain how to build a financial system that works even when motivation is gone, confidence is low, and emotions are flat. A system that assumes you won't feel ready. Because the truth is, you don't need motivation to change your money. You need structure. And once structure is in place, motivation becomes optional. There's another reason the motivation lie survives for so long. It protects people from disappointment. When you wait to feel ready, you always have an explanation for not starting. You're not failing, you're preparing. That story feels safer than trying and facing the possibility that progress might be slow. Motivation becomes a shield. As long as you're waiting, your self-image stays intact. You haven't failed. You just haven't begun. But over time, that protection turns into a prison, because the longer you wait, the heavier starting feels. Expectations build, pressure grows. The imagined version of doing it right becomes overwhelming. Eventually, even small actions feel inadequate, so people keep waiting. Another subtle effect of the motivation lie is that it teaches people to distrust consistency. They believe that if something doesn't feel powerful, it isn't meaningful. So when actions feel small or boring, they dismiss them. They think, this can't be enough. But small actions repeated are the only things that ever work. Motivation-driven action feels powerful. System-driven action feels quiet. Quiet progress doesn't impress the brain, but it changes outcomes. The people who succeed stop trying to feel inspired. They focus on removing friction. They make the right action easier than the wrong one. They reduce decisions. They automate behavior. They assume they'll feel tired, distracted, unmotivated. And they build around that reality instead of fighting it. That's emotional intelligence with money. Another reason people don't feel motivated is because they attach meaning to outcomes too early. They tell themselves, if I fail, it means something about me. If this doesn't work, I'm broken. If I mess this up, it proves I can't change. That pressure crushes motivation. Motivation doesn't survive high emotional stakes, so the brain delays. It waits for a safer moment, but safety never arrives when identity is on the line. The way out is to lower the meaning. Early actions shouldn't prove anything. They're just experiments. When nothing is being proven, starting becomes easier. This is why people who finally change often say, I stopped making it a big deal. They removed the emotional weight, and action became possible. Another important shift is understanding that motivation often appears after momentum, not before. The first few weeks of consistency feel mechanical, unrewarding, even pointless. Then something subtle happens. The action feels familiar. Resistance drops. The brain stops arguing. That's when motivation shows up, not as excitement, but as willingness. Willingness to continue. And willingness is far more valuable than inspiration. Motivation is loud. Willingness is quiet. Willingness shows up even on bad days. This is why people who rely on motivation stop when life gets messy, and people who rely on structure keep going. Life will always interfere. Energy will fluctuate. Confidence will rise and fall. A system expects that. Motivation doesn't. Another trap is believing that starting small means thinking small. It doesn't. Starting small is how you respect psychology. Big changes threaten identity. Small changes slip past resistance. The brain doesn't panic. It doesn't fight. It allows repetition. And repetition rewires behavior. This is why people overestimate what motivation can do and underestimate what habits can do. Motivation can start a sprint. Habits build endurance. Money is endurance. Another thing people misunderstand is that motivation is often a reaction to novelty. New ideas feel exciting. New plans feel energizing. But novelty fades fast. So if your plan only works when it's new, it won't last. Durability matters more than excitement. The people who escape the motivation trap design for durability. They ask, can I do this on my worst day? Can I keep this up when I'm bored? Can this survive stress? If the answer is yes, it's a good system. If the answer requires feeling inspired, it will fail. There's also a social aspect of the motivation lie. People see others posting wins, sharing breakthroughs, celebrating success. They assume those people feel motivated all the time. They don't see the boredom, the repetition, the days where nothing happens. So they compare their internal resistance to someone else's highlight. That comparison kills motivation before it starts. In reality, Everyone struggles at the beginning. The difference is who keeps going without waiting to feel ready. Another powerful realization is that motivation often increases after commitment. Once you've committed publicly or structurally, your brain adapts. It stops debating. It accepts the new normal. Decision fatigue drops. Resistance fades. That's why removing the option to quit is so powerful. Not through force, but through design. If skipping is hard and showing up is easy, behavior stabilizes. Motivation becomes irrelevant. If you're listening to this and recognizing that you've been waiting for years, that doesn't mean you lack drive. It means you've been taught the wrong sequence. You were taught feel, then act, then change. The real sequence is act, adapt, then feel. Once you flip that, everything changes. You stop asking, how do I get motivated, and start asking, how do I make this automatic? That question leads to freedom, because automatic behavior doesn't require emotional permission. It just happens. And once money behavior becomes boring and automatic, progress accelerates quietly. Not because you're inspired, but because you're consistent. In the next video, I'll show how to design a simple, emotion-proof system that keeps working even when you're tired, distracted, or unmotivated. A system built for real life, not ideal moods. Because the goal isn't to feel ready, it's to stop needing to feel ready at all.